Let's talk about music theory for guitar players today. I'd like to discuss the top 5 worst guitar music theory mistakes I encountered on my own journey and with my students so far. These very common mistakes and roadblocks really stand in the way of reaching your full potential. So let's start eliminating them right away with 5 awesome exercises all guitarists should know. Let's do this. I know music theory can be a bit scary and intimidating at first, but once you truly master the basics, you will be a much happier guitar player, because a lot of the harmonic guesswork is replaced by knowledge and skill, which directly leads us to the first huge mistake: using the wrong scales. So guitar scales are organized sequences of notes, and I'm sure you're familiar with the pentatonic scale already, or maybe the natural minor scale, or the natural major scale, or the modes. Or if you're an experienced player already, you might know all about exotic scales. But one of the worst mistakes when it comes to scales is not knowing how to apply them. It's one thing to learn and memorize hundreds of shapes, but what it's all about is actually understanding when to use a certain scale. Let's say you want to play a guitar solo over a basic riff like that. Kind of a boring sound and cadence, so you want to use a cooler, more advanced scale like harmonic minor to spice things up. Wow, that sounds pretty horrible, but why? Well, the thought process behind this approach is usually, this riff sounds kind of boring, but I don't want to discuss this with the rhythm guitar player. I know, I will try to play the harmonic minor scale instead of the natural minor scale for my solo. Maybe that will spice things up. A lot of my students just guess like that, and sometimes you do come across a happy accident. But if you have to improvise on stage or in the studio under tons of pressure, there's no room for such errors. So the really simple cadence I want to play my solo over is just A minor, G major. So we are in the key of A minor, and I'm just moving from the 1 chord or the tonic chord to the chord on the 7th scale degree to G major. But here's why that didn't work out too well with my guitar solo. With the harmonic minor scale, that 7th note G is actually raised a semitone, so G becomes G sharp. So the natural minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the A harmonic minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp. And of course that causes extreme dissonance over that G major chord. That's the characteristic harmonic minor note I was playing. So that's not really that kind of cool and exciting dissonance we're sometimes going after. It just sounds terrible. So as an exercise, I want you to study the difference between a natural minor and a harmonic minor. You're first playing the 7 notes of the scale and then the chords on each scale degree. Notice how only one note is different in the A harmonic minor scale, but how multiple chords change because this note is featured in them. It's a great and very effective idea to compare different scales that way, and you will learn a lot by applying this system in your practice routine. By the way, you can download the video play-along exercises, the tabs, backing tracks and guitar profiles for all of today's exercises on patreon.com/Bernd. That of course is where I upload helpful files like this every single week, and all members have access to 5 full online courses as well. So make sure to join us over there today to make the most amount of progress in the shortest amount of time. Let's move on to the next huge mistake: working with the wrong intervals. Alright, let me play a riff for you real quick. Let's see how you like it. You don't have to be nice to me in the comments, it sounds pretty weird, right? I think your ears want to hear something like this instead. So why does this suddenly sound more melodic and correct? I was actually thinking about the key I was playing in. Do you know the feeling of hopelessly searching for the right chord and sound for your progression and you simply can't find it? Learning this will solve that problem forever. You probably know how to play minor thirds, major thirds, or perfect fourths, or of course perfect fifths in the form of power chords already. But as you probably figured out already, when you were songwriting, you can't really mix and match them together randomly with great results every single time. As you could hear with today's example riff, some combinations just sound better than others. So for my second riff, I was using the E minor scale as my framework. So when I was adding a third to the first note I was playing, to E, that was my root, I was adding G, the minor third, and not G sharp, because I don't have G sharp in the scale, it's G. And then for my second interval, I was playing C as my root, and I was adding E, the major third on top, and not D sharp, the minor third, because this note is not in the scale. A bit more melodic than the intervals from my first example. As an exercise, I want you to play through the E minor scale, but not just as a mechanical technique exercise. You will play it up in thirds and think really hard about the intervals that you're playing. Like, are you playing a major third or a minor third? What are the notes that you're playing? And so on. So make sure to just say the notes or the names of the intervals out loud as you're practicing this. Your neighbors won't really like it, but it's a really effective way of memorizing it. E, G, minor third. F sharp A, minor third. G, B, major third. We looked at a lot of other really cool intervallic scale patterns recently on the channel, and I think that a lot of you guys and girls actually missed that. If that's the case, make sure to shred over that subscribe button right now so that you stay on track from now on. You might have actually missed the episode with the exercise or tip that would have solved your biggest guitar technique or music theory frustration. And by subscribing today, that won't happen anymore because you're officially on track from now on. As you might know, we as guitarists are often focused way too much on the root of a chord, arpeggio, or scale shape. Just playing the root over chord changes constantly sounds pretty boring. It's kind of the least exciting thing you could play. So the absolute biggest misconception I had as a beginner, or mistake that I made as a beginner, please don't laugh at me, was thinking that I always need to play arpeggios or scale patterns from the root. My teenage mind couldn't handle the fact that a shape that's starting with a different note, like the major second, minor third, perfect fifth, and so on, could also be used for my guitar solo as well. You will obviously sound much better as soon as you target different notes like the thirds, sevenths, or even chord extensions like the ninth. But how can you actually practice this, and how can you get better at this? If you feel a bit guilty of always relying and focusing on the root with your scales and arpeggios, which we all do way too much, make sure to add a short improvisation session to your practice routine. But stop, you're not just jamming randomly in this practice block. You will avoid playing the root over the chords of the backing track, and you will target different, more interesting notes instead, like the thirds or the sevenths. Here's an example exercise for you. I'm playing the thirds and then the sevenths over the chords of the backing track. Let's move to another incredibly important topic right now. And while we're at it, let's have a couple seconds of silence for all the amazing riffs and licks that we have lost and forgotten over time. Maybe you would have written a huge hit song by now if you would have transcribed those ideas correctly. I know sight reading and standard notation are among the most dreaded topics for guitar players, and I don't want to push you to become the greatest sight reader of all time if you don't need it for what you do. But one thing that every single guitar player should know about at least is correct rhythmic notation. And yes, this also works with tabs. Let's say you have an amazing riff idea and you just write down the fret numbers on a piece of paper. So a couple of weeks later you still know which notes to play, but you have no idea which kind of rhythm, time signature or tempo you had in mind for this. This is obviously also a huge problem with the classic tabs you can find on the internet. There's no rhythmic context at all. Yes, you can record a short video or audio file of yourself playing the idea, but trust me, in the long run it's much more effective to learn how to write it down correctly, especially as you start working with with band members, other musicians or producers. And here's how I recommend learning and practicing this. Okay, so this is Guitar Pro. I'm still using an older version. I've used it for ages now. So one great thing, if you're just starting out with all of this, the software tells you immediately if you don't have enough notes in your measure. You get the color red, which is usually not a good sign. And it also automatically moves the next notes to the next measure in case you reach the maximum amount of notes for your measure. So that's just helpful when you're starting out and you're writing your stuff down and you're not really sure if you're doing things correctly. You will get at least a little bit of feedback from the software. So an obvious but great exercise is just writing down your ideas and riffs that you have each day. So just a short little riff idea, and I always start by figuring out the tempo. Right now it's set to 120 beats per minute. That actually sounds pretty good already. So I'm just starting out with the power chord and I'm playing one quarter note, then I'm playing the B and E string, maybe also the G string. Yeah, let's make it the full chord. As you can see, the cool thing is that I can just play it back and listen to it and see if I got it correctly. And then I was just playing the short 16th note triplet run. So I was playing... And that's the first measure already. Let's listen to it and see if we got it correctly. Yeah. And then I think I was ending my riff with power chord, G power chord. And it's just great to always have that because you can immediately see what you were playing and you also have a rhythmic reference so you can listen back to what you had in mind back then. Alright, I put the most important topic last because we talked about it in a couple of other videos already. One thing's for sure, you will get stuck on your guitar journey if you can't visualize the notes that you're playing on the fretboard. You absolutely need this for chords and for rhythm guitar playing, for guitar solos, for improvisation, for songwriting, for transcribing, so for pretty much anything that concerns guitar playing. It was one of my absolute biggest mistakes to study this relatively late on my guitar journey. I want you to have those amazing music theory light bulb moments much sooner than I had them, and that's exactly why I keep mentioning this topic whenever we talk about music theory. But please don't worry, there are some amazing shortcuts and it's not as bad as you might think. In fact, I made a full fretboard mastery course for all my members on Patreon, and this one will teach you every single little trick and shortcut that I know. Here's an example exercise, learning the white keys on the fretboard first before you fill up the gaps with the black keys on the piano. So in the end, remember to download all of your practice files, the backing tracks, video play along exercises, guitar profiles and tab PDF sheets. You can find them for this video and for all of the other videos I posted on YouTube so far on patreon.com/Bernd. Also make sure to subscribe right now so that I can nerd out together with you in the next episode and so that you don't miss it. I will hopefully see you again very soon. Have tons of fun practicing. Bye bye.